to Hey Jessica TV. Today we are continuing the Adobe series and I am telling you all about my favorite tools inside of Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to tell you what I use the most, how I use them, and how you can use them in your business too. So let's get started. Okay, let's talk favorite tools. Now I couldn't pick one specific favorite because I use so many inside of Photoshop, but my favorites when it comes to graphics and creating graphics are some of the more obvious tools, so I want to run through those. So let's say I want to create a graphic and I want it to have a background color. So I'm going to use the paint bucket and give it a background color. Now, let's say that I want to create a circle and have my headshot in that and then have text around it. So this is definitely one of my favorite tools. So what I'll do is I'll grab the circle and I'll give it a different background color just so I can see it. That doesn't really matter. So I'm going to make a circle that sort of goes off the edge. Now I want to place. So I've used the paint bucket tool and the shape tool so far. And then I'm getting ready to use probably my favorite tool in Photoshop, if I had to pick one. So let's make my headshot big enough to cover the circle. Now, what I'm going to do is just right-click this and create a clipping mask. What that does is it puts the layer that you're creating a clipping mask with directly into the layer underneath it. So I'm just going to right-click and do create clipping mask. So now the photo is inside of the circle. I can move around that layer and inside of the circle, but it won't show outside of it. And I love that tool. So far we've used the paint bucket, the shape tool, which you can do squares, rectangles, rounded circles, or rounded corners, circles, polygons, and then this custom shape tool actually has a ton more, like hearts and stars and arrows and things like that. And then now I've used the clipping mask tool. Okay, another one that I might consider using or that might fall into the favorite tools category is the gradient tool. So let's say I have seafoam and I also have mustard because these are my two brand colors, or two of my brand colors. If I hover over the paint bucket tool, I'll get the gradient tool and I can tell it that I want to use both. And all I had to do was create a new layer and drag it. So now it's using both of those colors in there. Okay, so gradient tool, paint bucket tool, and clipping mask tool. And then of course there's the text tool. I can't leave this one out. I'm pretty sure that's what I just typed. I can't leave this one out, but that's okay. So I can play with text and make it exactly what I want with the text tool. And then another one that I really love and use a lot is the adjustments panel. So anytime I'm working with images, so it can be photos like this, or maybe a photo I took to put on Instagram, I like to use the adjustments panel and all of these tools here to really make it look the way I want it to. So I might want to lighten it, which it's going to lighten the whole thing, but I can create a clipping mask and make it only apply to this layer. So now I've lightened my photo, and if I turn it on and off, you'll see the difference. So I like to use the adjustments panel. I love to use the character panel here. And then when I'm creating graphics, I basically use the text, the shape, the paint bucket, and the clipping mask tool. So those are definitely some of my favorites, and I hope that you guys learned a little something and can incorporate them inside of your Photoshop learning.